This is the SFC 30 Scag walk behind. We're going to give a review on the pros and cons of this equipment. I have used this thing for an entire season. I use this not only for my own property, but some of the other videos that I've made. Click up here if you want to see some. This review is really going to be broken down into 5 sections: the construction, the cost, the weight, the cut, and then lastly, just my overall thoughts on the product itself. All right, so the construction of this really, I think, is just an amazing piece of equipment. I don't really have any issues with the way that it's built or like the material that's used. From the actual metal itself, which they claim it to be military grade. I don't really know what that means. I mean, I've been in the Army for 17 years and I don't know what the hell that means. I mean, I'm sure it's a specific type of like thickness and quality, like grade A, grade B, whatever. The second thing that I really like about this piece of equipment is really like this small piece right here, made in America. I think one, it's important to back US-based companies, but two, it gives us jobs and it just ensures that we keep the quality that we deserve. And I think that American-made equipment, even though oftentimes it's a little more expensive, is really the best equipment there is. All right, the engine that they use, so this one specifically is the Kohler Command Pro. It's a 7 horsepower engine. I haven't had any issues. Like I said, I've only used this for 1 season. So I bought this in the end of 2023, in the beginning of 2024, in the winter months for this season that we just completed. And then for the gas tank on the back, I think it fits a gallon of gas. And really, it lasts the entire cut. And my cut for my property specifically is about an hour. I would think that it could probably do hour and a half to 2 hours, if I had to guess, or more. I don't really know. I've never put it to the test. Something I really don't like about this is this piece right here and how they have it set up. So I think they could have had a better design on this piece specifically where the discharge is. So it's really just this little clip, and it, holy shit, it's stuck. There it is. Come on, baby. That's how long it's been. It's caked on there. Look at that. Bam. For example, like this little clip right here can, one, it can be easily broken, and then two, it just seems like there could have been a better idea in how to manufacture this whole piece. So like that's part of it, is like if I'm in a rush and I'm going from job to job and certain jobs need a bagger or a mulcher or a side discharge, going back and forth and then just clipping it on and pushing it on. So yeah, it's on there pretty stable, but this clip just seems pretty flimsy to me. And I'll show you a different discharge. All right, so here's the side discharge. Ultimately, what you're trying to do is put this piece of metal in between this little bar area, and then these 2 pieces of hardware will just kind of go in this area, and then you kind of staple it down or nudge it down. So my issue with this is you can see how caked everything is already. So as I'm trying to work this piece, yeah, it fits, right? And it's on there pretty good. But like I said, like that's what they came up with. They could have came up with a better design, I personally think. I'm not an engineer, so I don't know what that design really is. But like, come on, man. Like, how much this thing costs? You would think that it's just not in this little wedge. You don't just put it in this little wedge area and call it good. So side discharge, like I said, the mulching plate, and then lastly, the bag. So the bag is made of, I would say, pretty good quality. Mesh seems pretty good, but it's pretty simple to kind of put on. all you're basically doing, and I'll show you here in a second, is opening up back, putting the ears inside their little hole, and then letting the back of it kind of just sit on it or rest on it. That ear goes in this little slot. This piece right here just lifts up and closes on top. And that's pretty much it for the bag. Now the 2023 model versus the 2024, there's not much, but I will show you something here in a second with the actual construction of it. Basically, there's this little lip that they shaved off for the 2024 model. So this lip right here is what Scag actually improved. So what they did is in the 2024 models, and this is something you might want to look at, is that they removed this piece right here so that it's flush with the rest of it. And the reason they did that is when you lower the deck, this piece could actually drag into the dirt or into the, the grass and mess it up. So Scag actually did listen and got rid of this piece. So look for that. Next thing is the cost. So the cost of this Scag is between $2,000 to $3,000 currently in 2024. You could probably find a sale to make it even cheaper. The design of it, I think, is where the price of it. And these, the way that they're built, does not feel cheap. It feels like quality equipment, as if it should. And also it feels like you're not getting something from China. I think the reason that this thing costs so much is, one, it's made in America, and that comes with a price, is that we're not building things off of, slave labor, and Americans have a certain quality of life, and that's kind of what you're paying. But you're also paying for the build quality, the engineering, and the thought process to get this to be the machine that it is. And then the material itself. So it's thick steel. Everything on here is pretty solid. There's really no cheap materials that I really see anywhere. All right, the third thing is the weight of it. So because we're using this thicker material, it creates sort of a problem for me as a homeowner. So I don't cut grass for a living or mow properties every day and all day long. So I might have a different view than most. But the weight of this machine is between 210 and 230 pounds, which is not something easily maneuverable. As you can imagine, when you're cutting the grass and the soil itself is kind of soft, that this thing will freaking sink. And when it sinks, it scalps your lawn. So my issue with that is, one, it's hard to maneuver, and some of these SFC 30s have casters in the front, and I do recommend, and I will get it eventually, is if you are using one of these every single day, all day long for a living, 100% you should put casters on it to get around and maneuver around yards. Without it, you do get used to the actual equipment like I have, but it does make it a little bit harder, and it's heavy as hell. The second thing is, because it's heavy as hell, if you have any type of hill itself, I catch myself basically holding it off to the side almost as I'm kind of pushing it because it weighs so much, and it's not a very smooth piece of equipment. You can go back and forth, but you're struggling to kind of hold it up on the hill. That goes to the third thing, is that these are propelled wheels. So if that propulsion ever goes out, it is going to be a bitch to push this thing around the yard. So I have a little over a half acre, and if I had to push this thing without the propulsion system, I would get rid of it, and that would be the end of it. 220 pounds is a lot to just be throwing around all day long. Some others might think differently, but that's just my thoughts. So and then I think the last thing for the weight itself is that if you have soft ground or soft, if you have a soft ground, is that You'll notice that the tires, because they're kind of thinner, they actually sink into it and it'll get stuck a little more often than, you know, a 21-inch mower or something that's smaller. So that's another thing to kind of look at. Another problem with just the amount of weight that this thing carries around, it's hard to like load up on your truck by yourself unless you have a ramp. You're not just going to be able to like pick up this thing and, you know, transport it however you want. So the next thing is really the cut. I think the cut is probably second to none compared to most other manufacturers. I think they put a lot of time and effort into making the quality machine that they make, and I've had zero issues with the cut. There are some hiccups that you may see. So when you're actually cutting this thing and it digs into the dirt, because it's so heavy, it can affect the cut a little bit. Scag has made it super easy to adjust the height of the deck on this particular model, and makes the cut and changing the cut and the height of where the deck sits really easy for anybody. To adjust the actual height itself of the deck, it's actually super easy. So as you can tell, it basically goes from 1.5 inches all the way to 5 inches in 1/4 inch increments. So if I wanted to, you know, go up or down, right now I have it at the 3 inch. Basically just kind of follow the hole in the diagram right here. But what it will look like is this. So you'd basically push up, adjust into whatever section. So I'm going to go all the way down, push it, and then lower it. And that's it. So you can see the difference in height all the way at the bottom. Does have a little bit of issues when it's tall wet grass. If it's just wet or if it's just tall, it does pretty well. But if it's a combination of those two, just like most other mowers, it doesn't mow very well, and it's actually bogged out on me a couple times. So here's my final thoughts on this piece of equipment. I think the Scag SFC 30 is a great piece of equipment. Would I buy it again? I would buy it with a couple stipulations. One, with the casters, so I can easily move. Two, if I had very little hills or the grade of the hill is not very much. I don't know if I would buy this for a company. I feel like the 21-inch, which Scag does make now, it's a fairly new thing for 2024. They make the SFC 21, and I think it's because of the weight of this thing, how heavy it is, and just the maneuverability. And I think that's what the SF21 is supposed to kind of like hit at. For commercial use, I don't know if I would use this every single day, but as a homeowner and me as, I would say, a hobbyist, because I do cut grass for veterans for free. And that's kind of what I've been doing. And if you want to see one of those videos, either watch this one to the end and click on one of the cards, or just go through the rest of my YouTube channel. I think that I said a lot more negatives than I did positive, but I want to leave you with this, is that this is a hell of a machine, and I would 100% buy it again. Me knowing the obstacles in my yard, me knowing the elevations and elevation changes or any potholes, me just knowing my property, this thing is a beast and it works really well. It's actually it's like perfect for me. But if I had to use this at other people's properties day in and day out, I would not use this. I would probably go with the 21-inch that Scag makes, or you might want to go with just a different brand. I don't really know. So I hope that helps, and I hope you got something from this.